really that dangerous. I'm just walking around. You got a sweet little garden. This is a pretty little town.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Grandma Show, where Tom and T chats with Bob Dub. Before we get started, please take note that the following content is aimed at a mature listening audience. Graphic and explicit language may be used at times, and listeners' discretion is advised. The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual hosts or guests on this show do not necessarily express those of this or any other platform.
I'm not really that dangerous. I'm just looking around. You got a sweet little garden. This is a pretty little town.
Nor of any of the sponsors of any of these platforms. Listeners are advised that neither this platform nor its owners or agents shall be held liable for the content of this program. None of the material contained within this program may be rebroadcast, redistributed, or reused without the express written permission of the hosts or producer.
Hi, and welcome back to another edition of the Love Rebellion. And today we're going to have WDLady, known on Minds as Badass Ro. And joining us for part of the time, we're going to be having Aragmar. And both of those people are writers. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, I've been drawn to them. They were a couple of the first people I've ever met when on our social network here. And something about writers just keeps my interest. So I thought we'd just share how much we love our writing friends today. And I hope you enjoy it.
So yeah, I do feel that we should have these groups, and I do feel that we should introduce people to each other and to Minds, not to the community of the internet, because it's not just the internet. I keep on thinking like the internet is like a man can have a beer at the end of the day and put his feet up and say, my work is done. And the woman can be in the kitchen cooking the dinner. But if the man has 12 beers while the woman's in the kitchen cooking the dinner, her feeling towards him changes. And I think that's the same with the internet. There's a right way to use it. There's some people out there in the real world doing real world stuff, and there's some of us in here doing internet stuff. But there are ways that you can get it wrong on the internet and in real life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think we've been good so far at skirting the bad part about it, because I don't agree with those channels that do that either. I know there's one that I've seen do that everywhere. So come support me. Well, when we were new on Minds, that wasn't the way I did it. No. Matter of fact, I didn't even try doing that. It was people like Willie Lee, James, and Chris, real people saying, hi, you're new.
Yes. Come and talk to us. We're in this gathering. And remember those little groups that got formed? And there was always somebody in the gathering. You could post pictures, or you could do a chat, or you could message. There were so many different availabilities of, different methods that the chats were available to people.
Mm-hmm. Isn't it funny how those gatherings died just like when we got the new chat? It was like it went from that to the chat. And the chat, I like it in some ways, but it's almost dividing again, because you get over there and you're only talking to one person. Yes. I think that's the reason why I was happy to see it, although I wasn't expecting it, for all the people to pour into the grandma chat.
Yes.
It's like, whoa.
It is lovely. But I would love to see that happening on Minds itself. I would love to see communal chats where other people can come and just watch and just, so that's what that guy does. So that's how you say that. Because I think that a lot of people who have English as a second language are joined on Minds, and a lot of them speak in their own language, which is great. But English
Yep.
is the international language, and being able to watch other people talk English, and not have to be invited into the group necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
So I
That
think
reminds me of how we used to do it a long time ago. Like I said, we'd park on one person's channel and just sit there and in comments.
yeah,
I mean, like 3 hours. I can remember whole evenings that I would spend there laughing ourselves silly.
yes,
And all it was just words on a screen. But that made the first real community.
yes,
That was where it all
yes.
started.
Like with the bonds, yes, yes.
Yeah, and those bonds. Some of them have slipped away. I remember one guy, I'm gonna have to see if he's still on mine. His channel is called Complainers.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
spelled with a Q.
Oh,
I miss him so much. He was from Germany, and we got where almost every night we would chat, and it's like those things just kind of went by the wayside for some people, but some of us have gone back from the very beginning. I'm later. I guess I'm one of the later ones, actually.
hmm,
But as soon as I got in there, it was people like Willie and Chris and
hmm,
Don't Mind Me One. A lot of people are gone now, those ones that pulled me into the,
yes.
but I'm so grateful to them because this place, it sounds like an advertisement, but I just can't help it. This place is like my second home. I know people here and I just feel so blessed to have found a place. And they don't do that like other places do, trying to keep you apart. I hate being pigeonholed, and we are a little pigeonholed anyway, because I notice people on Minds tend to be, it's changing a little bit, but Minds used to kind of lean a lot to the right.
Yes.
It's kind of moderated a little bit now. Not, there's still plenty of,
And there's still
but it's,
plenty of right. But I think that the right-wing people were the first people to look for a home. They were the first people to stand up against the media. And even before that, they were the people who voted Trump in. And everybody talks about Trump as if he came in of his own will. But he was just a retired gentleman who wanted to play. And lots of men go into politics to play that game. He has become such a symbol of hope that people don't actually care what he says and what
mhm.
he does. They just want something. And everybody forgets that it was the people who put Trump in, not the media.
But the best thing he ever said was, it's not me thereafter, it's you.
Yeah.
I'm just standing in the way. Well, now he's not in the way anymore.
Huh?
And I was really happy to see that the people that are, I hate these words, but people that are more right of center
Yes.
and are, I don't know, it just seems to me like conservative people have a little bit more of a brain. We're not as brainwashed. There is definitely bias there, but it did something when he did that, when he said, they're after you guys. And it's so obvious now. It really is obvious. And I think, if nothing else, it got us from being complacent. I know I was.
Yes.
I was getting to the point
Oh, I
where,
was.
and I still don't think the political system is the way to answer all these things. I think it has terrible pigeonholing, and you don't even know if your vote counts. And that's why I kind of like, again, Richard Good. Let's just be who we are. I'm so tired of this left, right, center, up, down. My God, why can't we just be?
Well, in a relationship, in a marriage relationship, if one of the people tries to be controlling, that is not a minor problem. That is labeled as abuse for either partner to manipulate the other partner by emotions or finance or whatever it is. And yet, we have a whole political class that controls people. You use that same language, that whole political class abuses people. But people don't seem to see that. They seem to be fine with being manipulated, controlled, abused, and they say it's protection and security. How can it be protection and security in a country if it's not protection and security in a marriage?
And we as citizens have allowed it to, it's abuse. Like you said, it really is. These class of people are abusing the majority of the people. And I remember my mom and dad, they weren't very great examples because their idea was, I'm just not even going to vote.
Yeah.
They just, again, like I said in that other one, tune in, turn on, drop out. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, to some degree, but don't go so far that you can't do something to help your community. It got to the point where everybody's like, just let the political class do their thing. We'll just keep living our lives. So about 30 years of that, and look what we ended up where we are.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
We just let them, it's literally, we've let them abuse us.
Let them abuse us. And you know, when I first left, my first husband became schizophrenic, and it was very, very dangerous for me. And finally, after 4 years, I actually ran away, and I couldn't cope with it anymore. And I took my children, and we ran off in the middle of the night. And it's a terrible, terrible thing for me. It destroyed my life. And I wish that there had been any other solution that I had. But I like I say, I tried for 4 years. But where do we, as citizens, where can we run to? A lot of people said to me, women get abused because they won't leave. These women who stay in abusive relationships, they're this and that. And it was quite hard to face that. It was quite hard to question myself to see if that was true. And now I'm sitting here in New Zealand with this color system, and I'm thinking, I wonder if this has become abusive and if I should leave. But where would I go? Where is there in the world? Or is it Elon Musk, we're going to Mars because we can't actually get it together on Earth, so we're going to leave?
I don't think we should take it to Mars when we can't get it together here,
Exactly.
do you? There's something wrong with the human race if we can't figure it out on our home planet.
Yes.
And I think that's what's happening right now, because at first it was just a few lone voices in the wilderness, like Peterson, and there's been the iconoclasts that broke the mold and said, hey, whoa, now it's time for everybody else to start saying, okay, they stood up. And now it's hard. It really is, because I told you how I am. I'd much rather be sitting here in my own little corner. I don't want to get involved in it. But if you don't, then it's your children that pay. Like my pulling him out of school, yeah, it saved him from being indoctrinated, but then it took the socialization away. So we have got to say, no, we can't keep doing this. And as soon as we start doing that, then over here in the United States, Merrick Garland says, oh, that's terrorism. You can't talk that way to a school board.
Yes. It's shocking.
But we have to keep, it reminds me so much of the early Christians. They were underdogs. They were not listened to. And what did they do? If there was ever any pure communism, I think that was about as close as it came. They all got together and they sold everything, combined everything they had, and lived together. They probably thought the end of the world was around the corner, like we're thinking.
Yes, probably. Well, crucifixion was pretty gruesome. Yeah.
Pretty gruesome. And if you wanted to have any kind of support, you better find it underground. You know how the fish started? Have you ever heard the story of the fish?
I have, actually. It was a secret code, wasn't it?
Yeah, one would put the upper half.
Oh.
And if you were a Christian, you knew that, and that was the sign of the fish.
Gosh,
isn't that so cool? Everybody's this cross, but that wasn't the original sign. The original sign was the fish. And what did Jesus say about the fish? Go out and be fishers of men.
Oh, I was thinking about the fish that they fed he fed the 5,000. Gosh, he used fish a lot, didn't he?
Yes, he did. And fish out of water. Think about that.
Yes. Well, what you were saying earlier about standing up and speaking out, I think that our guests today, WDLady and Aragmar, are two people that we're very lucky to have here on Minds who actually are really, really standing out. I think I've read 5, maybe, of Aragmar's books. And how far did you?
I'm on the 5th one right now.
Oh, are you?
I just can't get finished. When school started, everything changed, and trying to find time to read is just,
I find that I do find 5 is a good place for me to pause in Aragmar's tale, because I
yeah,
think that
I pause too.
yes, he's got 5 and now he's got another 5 to come.
I'm sorry, but I just realized when you said that he has 5 and he has 5 to come. What a pause.
What a pause. Yes. Yeah.
But I noticed with me, with Aragmar's books, I can't just read a few pages. That's my problem.
Me too.
I'll start to read and the words, they start to blur and I'm like, what am I reading? Then I have to go back and read it again. And if I do manage to get 4 or 5 pages, I have to put it down because I got to go do something else. Then I come back and I'm like, what did I read?
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
Summertime is reading time for me.
Yeah.
The rest of the year, it becomes very difficult. So.
I lay down with the book yesterday afternoon, and about after half a page, I was asleep. And I thought, oh, there we go, Grandma. Life has become so busy, and this ridiculous corona, honestly, it's just, I'm not saying that it's not happening. I'm not saying that it's a hoax. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying, oh man, it's the only thing that happens in the world. What's happened to marriages and funerals and christenings, and they all seem
It's
to have
like everything
stopped.
else just died out
Yeah.
because Rona.
Yeah.
I am so tired of it. I was reading something the other day. They were talking about the comparison between California and Florida.
Oh, yes.
Both of them are warm states.
Yes.
They shouldn't have a lot of problems because of wintertime illness.
Yes.
Florida's maskless. California is as restrictive as it gets. And I just read an article that California has a very high rate, even though they're some of the highest vaccinated of people being ill. Florida went the open route and Florida is down.
Wow.
Same thing with Sweden. And I really think the answer is, sad enough, some people are going to die. And I hope that I don't know what to think about these vaccines, but I do wish that there is a few that might work, because there are some people that need protection. You get the elderly that one case of pneumonia and they're gone. But I think for the most part, we should just be getting out there and living our lives. You don't get herd immunity by hiding from everybody. Your immune system goes to... The only way I see out of it is to just... when we were kids and you got chicken pox, what did your mom and dad do? At least over here, we had chicken pox parties and measles parties. We all, oh, my kid doesn't have measles, she's coming. Yes. So they all got measles at the same time. They all got it over with, and nobody died.
Yes. Richard, gosh, I forgot what I was going to say. Richard said about long influenza. Everybody let the old people die of flu, and everybody said there's nothing we can do about it. And now we have a vaccine that doesn't stop this latest virus, and it's just exactly the same as it was. It just has a different name. And yet, as he pointed out, the long flu was just accepted, but long corona is a terrible, wicked thing.
Yeah.
I mean, where's the logic in this world?
That's what bothers me. The logic is gone. It's just like everybody started saying clown world. Nothing makes sense anymore.
Nothing makes sense.
And the only, I know I keep pulling it back to religion and faith, but the only thing that makes sense to me is that God is allowing to say, hey guys, do I have your attention yet?
Yes. Well, if Jesus was born in 1 AD and he died in 33 AD, and if we're in the same sort of cycle pattern and we've had a 2,000 year cycle, it seems to me that, well, I'm not going to say we've got a new Jesus born in 2000, but it seems to me that this first part of the era is a horrible time of confusion and abuse, and, well, it was in those days. And I'm wondering if it's a cyclical pattern with human beings, is that every 2,000 years we've forgotten everything that we've learned and we have to start again.
Mm-hmm. It is a new age. I've mentioned that before. We are literally going into a new age. And he was at the end of one age and the beginning of others.
No, there is.
I've heard some say that he was born 6 BC, 3 B. But
Yeah.
anyway, it was
Yes.
right around
Right
the
around.
end of 2000 years.
Yes.
And here we are again. And I keep thinking of Chris. That day he was saying we need to write a new Bible. And a lot of, if you grew up in my church, it was like, oh no, you can't add or subtract. No, you can't dare.
Yes.
But we're doing new exploits. We are in a new century, in a new age. And Jesus didn't just disappear because it's 2000. He's still there. He's still
Oh, yes.
real.
Oh, yes.
And
No,
we're all thinking.
What you were saying about we need to get back to faith. That's sort of the thing that I think Jesus really inspired this great big community building thing. And here we are. We can't point to exactly one person. I mean, we've had Assange, we've had Snowden, we've had Peterson, we've had Bannon, we've had all these great, strong male figures speaking out against the, and then Trump, I should add him to, speaking out against what society has become. And now we've got this groundswell of people wanting to get back to church, wanting to get back to God, wanting healing and love and compassion and here we sit in the middle of a pandemic with this desperate need to connect. It's so ironic.
And what makes me so upset is the very place that we were hoping to have that faith connection were the first ones to shut down, lock their doors and tell us stay home.
Yes.
That just, honestly, that was the catalyst to change my life right then and there. Because I remember the Sunday that we shut down, I shook the pastor's hand and I something felt very momentous about it. I said, if you need anything, call me. And he said, if you need anything, call me. But I knew when I was walking away, something in me said, this is never going to be the same again.
Never going to be the same.
Never.
I've just read.
And I was getting ready to launch a new program at that church about women who'd been abused. I was going to be coordinating a group for abused women and it just went right out the window. But you know what? I found you.
Isn't it amazing? It's as if God already had his idea and he didn't really care whether we did it over the internet or in the churches.
But just do it.
Just do it.
Just do it. That Nike quote, just do it.
Yes, it's a good one, isn't it? It's such a good one.
Yeah. So I was talking to my neighbor, it wasn't this week, it was last week. And I said, it's kind of funny that I was knocking online church and here I am.
Isn't it strange? When I was little, I went to a school run by nuns, and there was a lot of talk about missionaries and how, and I'm guessing that the nuns had worked as missionaries in different things, because there was this lot of talk about how it was so awesome to go and be a missionary to a country that hadn't accepted Christianity. And I remember reading some story about a woman who was sent to China. God sent her to China. And when she first got the call to be a missionary when she was a real young girl, she'd tell God that she would go here and she would go there and she would go anywhere, but she wasn't going to China. And how it ended up, where did she go? To China. It's strange. I don't know.
It is. My pastor, I don't think I would ever ask him, but I think I am going to ask his wife, because they were both missionaries. And I've still got some connection with her. He, on the other hand, seems to try to be running that church more like a business. And I think that's what's happened to churches.
Yeah.
They're so busy trying to keep the doors open and all that the money that has to come in, and they start thinking like the world.
Yes, yes.
But you know who else I thought of? My doctor. Dr. Steele was a missionary. I bet I could get him. I'm going to ask him. I am going to ask him.
Please do.
He was in Ghana for 20 years.
Wow.
20 years.
That's a lot.
I would really love to hear some of his stories. And I did kind of talk to Kathy, my pastor's wife. I think she would be willing, but I haven't given her a formal invitation yet, because I want to wait till I can say, okay, we're still kind of learning how to walk.
Yes,
You
yes,
know
yes,
what I
yes,
mean?
yes, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
But I do want to get her on here. These real life people, like when I met your Richard, wow.
Yeah.
Now I know some of more about how you are, because you have someone like that in your life.
Yes.
And I have real ones in my life too. I
Yes.
really would,
Yes.
it would be cool. I'm just not sure how we would go, but I'm sure it would work.
Something
But
will
it does
happen.
make a difference. It
Yes,
does
it
make a
makes a
difference if
difference.
you do have these real connections.
Yes. Yes, it really does.
And I did ask Roy Potter, and he never did answer me.
Oh,
So
not yet. Well, let's keep
not
on
yet.
asking him.
I'm going to keep putting it in I'm going to try to catch him on a live chat because when he does the live, he listens, he
Yes.
watches.
Yes.
He's the one that said we need a place of refuge, and I keep hearing that in my that little inner ear.
Yes. Yes. We need a place of refuge. Yes, we certainly do. We need a
And
place that we
Jesus in
can
the Bible, it
come.
says that the sheep in the pasture, that they will be watched over. There's another place that says, come away with, it's in Song of Solomon's, come away with me, my darling. You know,
Yes.
yeah.
But not to Mars. We need.
If we're going to go to Mars, if it's possible to go to Mars, we better not take our problems there.
Yeah.
I think we need to get ourselves
Yes. My doctor
fixed.
said to me the other day, because I'm quite interested in SpaceX. I find it absolutely fascinating. I watched the moon landing, and I was 5 years old, and I was completely entranced and enraptured by these brave men going off and stepping onto this uninhabited, and I knew that it had happened. There was the Wild West, and there was all the stuff of men going exploring. But to see it happening on TV for me, and now I'm seeing SpaceX all over the place. Anyway, so I said something to my doctor, and he said, wow, imagine the psychological assessments you would need to get a place on that airship. And I thought, wow, that's a really interesting point. How would you qualify for Mars?
Yeah, how long would the trip be? Oh, can you imagine that?
6
You would have to
months.
be pretty squared away in your head to be able to be gone from
6
where you.
months.
I think about the pilgrims, they had to cross an ocean. This is a heck of a lot more than an ocean. And you know my opinion. I don't trust anything that's said on the news. I don't trust anymore.
Yeah.
And I remember that song, I forget who did it, that the space thing was filmed in a Hollywood
Oh,
basement.
yes, yes, yes. I've heard that, yes.
I do think, I know we've talked about this before, I do think there is something else out there, but I have this feeling that we've been barricaded, or how, who is it? Alex Jones says it's a
Yes.
prison planet.
Oh, right.
I have this feeling in my gut that it really is. I don't know. It doesn't really matter, but I do think that at some point or other, there is a way to go somewhere else. I don't know what it'll take to get there, but
It'll be fascinating.
when I read C.S. Lewis and he talks about jumping in a puddle and being in a different realm, I think there is even Jesus said there are sheep of other pastures.
Yes.
So I might have my limitations on accepting what I see right now, but I do think it is possible. And to think that there is exploration, there is a future. You were talking about how everything's so dark and dreary, to think that you could go somewhere else. We don't have any more frontiers here on Earth.
No, we do have the sea. We haven't explored the sea. But
yeah.
Well, I would love to see his rocket go down to the bottom of the ocean. Do you remember that little rocket that he made for the Thailand boys? Wouldn't it be cool if he made a rocket that went down and not just one that went up? I would love to go down to the Mariana Trench. Is it called Mariana? Whatever it's called.
Yeah, the Mariana or Marianas, something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's something that's in the human blood to explore, to be in new places. But you know what I think we need to do? And I said it the other day about not going past your own nose.
Yes.
We need to explore inner space.
Oh, that's true. Very true.
Because if you, I can't remember how the quote goes, but something about an unexamined life is a wasted one.
Yes, I know that one. Yeah.
And I think before we go anywhere, that's what's going to be required. We're going to have to look at ourselves. We're going to have to, you can't fix the world's problems when you got your own problems.
Yeah.
And
Truth.
Christianity answers those questions. We all have problems. We're all broken. And the only way to get unbroken, well, you're not really unbroken. You come with pieces.
Yes, yes, indeed. Pieces that we have to piece together like a puzzle, right? Yeah. Okay, let's jump on over to our main segment. We'll take a quick break and then we'll head on over and we'll eat. We'll meet WDLady and Aragmar. And now we're back after that little musical interlude to say welcome to you, WDLady. Thank you so much for being here with us. It's just great to see you.
I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here. And as a special guest, we've got Aragmar back again today. And he's not feeling too good, guys. So let's be nice to him today. Hi, Aragmar.
Hello.
All righty. Well, I guess we'll get going. I guess we'll start with some of your books, WDLady. I've read quite a few of them, but I do want to say one thing first. I got to tell how we met.
Okay, go right
I
ahead.
mentioned it once before, but we had a friend in common, but we didn't know each other. And her name was Cherry Nova. She was so cool. And I don't think she's there anymore, but one day she said, "Hey, I got a friend for you." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, who?" And she says, "WDLady, just hold on a second." And this was back when we didn't have chat or anything. So she got her into the comments and we're like, "Oh, hi, how are you? Nice to meet you." That was about 3 years ago, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, yes it was.
Yeah, you've been around for a while.
Oh yeah, since the beginning of Mines. Once Mine
Oh,
started, we were all part of it, and it was great actually. It was a great startup and everything. Um
so what year did you start with Mines?
I think it was like, what is it? Like 2000.
It's
When did
in
they?
16, maybe 15,
Yeah, cuz I don't
something
even
around
remember.
there.
Because
Yeah.
if it was like 3 years ago, it's like 2017 or something like that. Just like when they released their site, because they were
Oh,
saying that they were about free speech and everything. So I signed up right away.
I heard about it, but I didn't sign up right away. I was on YouTube and I had a pretty good sized channel, and they took my channel down after the shooting in Florida.
Really?
So I had heard from Corbett Report about mines, and it was in the back of my head. And when they did that, I was just so angry, and I was thinking, where am I going to go? And I checked it out, and I've been there ever since. And it wasn't too long after that I met you and Aragmar. I think you were the first one that even
Uh-huh.
messaged me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I ran into Bob Dub not long after either. So we're all old timers here. We know each other.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And I said earlier, I have an affinity for writers. I have no idea how that happens, but these people that I run into, when I start finding more out about them, they write almost everyone. So can you talk a little bit about your books that you have? And I'd like to know about your first ever book.
Oh, okay. My first ever book is definitely Nightmarish Reality. I was writing that. I was probably like 16 or 17 years old in high school. It was a it was more like of a experiment, because we had social media was just kind of starting out, and we had live journal, and we had some other sites like I can't remember. There was another one. Yeah, MySpace was coming
Mm-hmm.
out, and so I decided to do like a experimental blog, because I didn't really know I was going to be a writer. So I was like, let me just test this out because all my friends are on LiveJournal or MySpace. So I started doing this blog and started, people started commenting and reading it, and they're like, you should just write a book. So I was like, okay. So that's kind of how it started. It just started with like a couple pages, um, and it was Nightmarish Reality is basically about a boy who's been suffering from these nightmares, and he doesn't know exactly what's causing them. So he has a journal, and then he writes down in his journal like certain events in his past. So he's kind of like trying to piece together what's going on. So it's kind of like a little bit of mystery, kind of psychological, but it was really interesting, and people seem to gravitate towards it. So I decided to publish it in 2012.
Oh, you've had it out that long.
Oh yes, yes. Um, I published it probably when I was still in California. I was in California at the time, and I was able to have because it took me a long time because I had it like for over a decade. It was just kind of like sitting on my shelf, and for so long I didn't think that I should publish it, but I decided to publish it. I had the courage to do it, so that's what happened.
Now, I'm going to have to buy that whole book, but I remember there was a time when you were having reading contests. You remember that?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
oh yeah.
that's when I first started reading your book, and I was reading a chapter at a time. Oh my gosh, I remember. And you've changed your name now to Don't Sleep, and that's from that book, isn't it? Because he
Yes,
couldn't every time he slept.
yes, yes.
Yeah, that is a
Um, the
spooky book.
irony of it.
Interesting. That's really interesting. So the sleeping and the name are linked. Why did you do that?
Well, initially it was supposed to kind of promote the novel, but because the main character, because even though he's technically afraid to sleep because every time he falls asleep he has these like nightmares. And I remember in high school I don't know what was going on. I was just under a lot of stress because we were planning graduation, and every night I just could not sleep because either the stress or just too much was going on. So I was like, I have to I have to somehow get rid of this kind of like this feeling. So I think initially that's why I wrote it out there as a journal, and that's why I think once I started writing it, I actually started to feel a little bit better. So I think that was a way to release whatever problems, whatever stress I was going through. Because technically I just couldn't sleep in high school. I just could not sleep because it was just too stressful, too many exams. It was so much going on.
You're not the only one who's had trouble with sleep. I've been diagnosed with primary insomnia, but boy, lately, wow, have I been sleeping.
That's good. That's
Yes.
good
Yeah,
to hear.
Very
I turned my bed around. It's on another wall. It's on the same wall, but in a different direction, and now it faces toward the east. Is that the way we're supposed? The best way? Anyway, the sun comes up in this window,
Hmm.
and ever since I did it, I've been sleeping 8 hours. Like what the? I've never slept like this before.
That's good. That's good because
That's very
most
good.
times I can't even get a straight 8 hours. It's like either 4 or 5, and then that's it. My body's like, wake up.
That's the
my
way I usually am. But it's so funny that your story is in that subject. And I remember you do get yourself stressed when you don't sleep, and it becomes almost a psychosis. Everything in reality seems like a dream, and dreams seem real. And that's a lot of the reason I think your story makes so much sense to people that have trouble sleeping. And then when
Hmm.
you do get to sleep, you're overtired, and you have these, at least I've had horrible nightmares, and you wake up like, ah.
Hmm. Yeah,
So it
that's
really
true.
ties in with reality. But your character, he seemed like he was kind of like me growing up, misunderstood, the one that gets picked on. And
Yes, yes. He's always being bullied, because he's a little bit different, and I wanted to have a character who was, um, even though usually it's good to have a character that can stand up for themselves, he's the type that he's just afraid of what people will think of him. So it's kind of like that because, when you're at that age, you don't really know what you want in life. You don't really know, because I didn't really have a lot of close friends, maybe like one or two close friends, but I've experienced that where you're lonely and you want someone to communicate with, and sometimes it happens where you don't have anyone to really connect to. So I wanted to create a character who was going through these things and have people at least sympathize in his situation, in his problems, because it's technically kind of based loosely on my life and some other people who I've known who've experienced that type of bullying on a daily basis, and it's kind of like almost like an anti-bullying thing. But I wanted to make sure that people know that there is help out there. It's not the end of the world, because some people do end up having like suicidal thoughts or committing suicide because of the bullying. So I wanted to kind of talk about those issues.
yeah, that was something that I did want to bring up because I remembered that so well. And I, I know I had that as a younger child, but when I got older, I learned not to let that bother me. And I became
Mhm.
almost actually, people were afraid of me after a
Yeah.
while. I don't know why, but my kids went through the same kind of thing. My son was always picked on, but then he got to junior high and something changed in that boy, and all of a sudden nobody was picking on him.
Mhm,
But it
mhm.
is something that I think a lot of us experience as adults. I know it doesn't seem the same, but there's adults that can be downright cruel to you. And
Oh
it's
yeah,
based,
oh yeah.
I see it on the internet a lot of internet bullying. I don't see it so much here on Minds anymore, but I remember how it did used to happen fairly frequently.
Oh yes, we did
Yeah.
have them. We had them. We still have like a couple of them, but it's not the same. We kind of
No, it's
we
not.
kind of took care of them.
Yeah, we kind of teamed up. That's another thing I wanted to bring up. I'm glad you're here, Aragmar, because we've kind of gotten into a community. Now, you, WD Lady, and Aragmar, you're like tight. You and me and Bob Deb too. We have this little group there.
Yeah.
And if I notice, I wish we could get Rev Holiday on here someday because he is so good about that. When someone in his circle, our circle, gets picked on, man, he is the first one to come in there and say, "Hey, not to my girls, you don't."
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, exactly. He's like the big brother, like comes in and he's always there, he's very supportive.
He is wonderful. He's the writer too, by the way. And
Mhm.
he's going to be putting a book out shortly. I don't want to give his story away too much, but
Mm.
eventually we're going to get him on here too. Another one of our little group that I don't always want to stick with our own little close group. We do venture further afield.
Mhm.
But knowing that there are people like that on our little corner of the world has made such a difference for me. I was telling John the other day, we had somebody that got marked in SFW, and I get aggravated every time I see that. And I wrote to him and said, "Hey, John, come on. Do we have to keep going through this?" But it's become, we're helping each other. And I just love how this community has come together, and people are starting to recognize that there's a little group over here. We're doing, and we seem to attract more new ones every once in a while. I have a new one, Light 777 Angel. What a doll she is. But it's just nice to have this core, and these four of us sitting here together. If you can't talk about more of a core group, I don't know what we would call us. But I do
Mhm.
want to say thank you to both you guys because you've been there through thick and thin with me. And I know I've been back with you, but it's just wonderful to have people that you know. And there, we've had a few that we don't really know all that well. I love Robert Van Dusen, but I didn't really talk to him much other than his little cute captions. So when he came on, it was more like an exploration. Who are you? You know, because all we've seen is his stories and his funny things. So we got to learn a little bit more. But with us here, we don't have to go through all that. We know each other pretty well.
Yeah,
But
yeah, exactly.
mhm. um, I want to get Aragmar in here a little bit too. I know we have your next book out. We can talk about yours too for a little bit. But I do want to do one more thing with you, WD Lady, before we keep going around. You have more than one book, so tell us about your other books.
Sure, sure. So the sequel is Nightmares Revelations, and it's kind of similar to what we have. It's the main character Xander. He ends up meeting other students, other people who are rejects, other so he kind of ends up somewhat kind of forming like a little group of social outcasts in a sense. So the sequel, but it's kind of like it's interesting because I have a main villain, Ru Chan, and um, he's kind of like the main, uh, well, kind of like the second main villain, but we have other characters like his brothers, Stefan and Ikeda, and they kind of come in and they kind of like manipulate this certain situations, but Ru Chan is usually the one because he knows that these kids, these students are outcasts, so he kind of uses that to his advantage. So that's another thing in high school where certain adults, even though you know you might confine to them, they may be counselors. You have to be very careful who you trust because some of these adults will end up using you in a sense or taking advantage. So that was a little bit of a warning to people who are outcasts that they can be manipulated by evil forces or brainwashed in a sense. So that was another thing in the book. And you have all these different characters. They have certain goals, certain dreams, and Ru Chan is basically just kind of because he I don't want to give away too much of the spoilers, but he will kind of grant their wishes. So he will give them what they desire the most. So the only the only bad thing is that of course he will use that to his advantage and turn it around or twist it or make it something dark.
So those are the only two books you have, those two?
Yes, I'm trying to finish off the trilogy, but with work and everything, I'm so close to finishing. But because I'm kind of like a perfectionist and I like to go back and edit so many times. So when I'm ready, I'll probably it was supposed to be released um last year or two, but of course didn't get a chance to publish it, but I'm waiting for the right moment and it's almost there. Just got a couple more chapters to finish and hopefully I'll be able to publish it soon.
Wonderful. When you get it done, will you come back with us and let us showcase that new one for you?
Sure, sure. Yeah, I can definitely do that. Thank you.
Wonderful. And I want to get on another subject since we've got both of your books covered. I saw you in chat this morning, you and Aragmar, talking about writer's block. Aragmar, you want to talk to us about that? You having trouble?
Uh, well, it's different. Um, Generally, when you have like a solid writer's block, it's because that well, a myriad of reasons you might have like trouble with your draft. You may have like maybe a plot hole or something, or something like that. but or you're feeling out of breath, so to speak. You've worked for way too long without any breaks, and you kind of burnt out. But in my case, I have everything. I have my drafts. I have like that's not the problem. The problem is that my my brain refuses to work properly.
That's happened to
That's
me on a couple occasions as well, especially with this trilogy. Because when you're going through and you're editing and you're finding these plot points or these plot bunnies, it can really kind of mess
uh,
you up. Yeah, yeah. And
yes,
but
it
I've
took me it took me a couple of years to fix those.
Yeah, I had writer's block for years. It's just I don't know. I just had a feeling of inadequacy. Like I just felt like my book was just not like the trilogy. I was having doubts whether if I could actually keep up the story, the pace of the story, or try to keep people interested in the story. Because at some point you kind of doubt yourself, like, is anyone really interested in seeing how this series is going to end, or does anybody care about these characters? So you have these doubts, and sometimes it can just be pure fatigue because I would spend hours, literally hours from I would wake up early in the morning, maybe like 5 a.m., and just start editing, and I wouldn't go to bed until almost literally the next day, almost like 6 a.m. So I would get to the point where I was like, because I wanted everything to be perfect, I would get to the point where I just physically could not look at another
Yeah,
chapter, could not look at another sentence. I was just pure fatigue from just
yeah,
editing.
that's pretty similar. That's one thing that one of my teachers told me when she read the first couple of drafts. She said that no matter what you do and how much you wish it to be ideal, perfect, it will never be perfect.
Exactly. 'Cause
And
nobody's perfect.
oh yes, and she said that it's better to have it out there because you never know what might happen. It could be like it's like we don't want to think about it, but this is real life, and you never know what might happen tomorrow. So it's that's what she said because she had like a really thick tome, very big book. I think it's more than 1,000 and was 1,400 pages, and she wasn't going to finish it ever. She was very old. She was bedridden, and she could no longer actively work on her book, and that was her life. She was like working on it for the past 24 years, I think. Yes, 24
That's
years.
a long time.
And I have no idea if her daughter would ever be able to continue that and publish the book. Maybe, I don't know.
Mhm.
So, but that's that's something to ponder about.
Yeah, some writers, they never publish their novels. I've
Ah,
heard of stories. Yeah,
yes,
'cause
I've met a couple of them.
yeah. I mean, it's just something that happens. Some people like it will be their life story or their life's work, and they'll either pass away or something happens, or yeah, and sometimes it's maybe her family members might be able to publish it in her memory, hopefully.
Yeah, yeah,
um
yeah.
it's sad, but some people are it's happened where it's lonely. Being a writer, it's a lonely life, but luckily we have this group here and we can talk about our experiences. But some people, they don't have that. They don't have a chance to get feedback from other people. So
Yes.
they're just cooped up in their room, and especially during lockdowns and whatnot, it's made it worse. Um, so
Yeah.
it's just one of those things. It's sad, but it does happen.
You're right, and there is also that other thing that some people they isolate themselves by their own um,
Choice.
choice. Yeah, they they make their own decision. They think that no one they will never find anyone like-minded or someone who would acknowledge their work. It's like the doubt is eating them from the inside, and this is one of the leading causes for you know um, so it's it's good when you um, it's also dangerous, but it's good when you decide to um, publish your work and like show your work to the world. It doesn't matter that, of course, you will meet some special, super special people. You know, we all know them, and they will say everything that you or you are a failure or you don't know that or how dare you do write this or well, how dare you write this character, you're so hot and what, it's like etc, you
Hmm.
know.
Yeah.
But if you don't do this, it's worse because your work, um, no matter how you think, like how much like inadequate that you yourself think that your work is, uh, it can actually help other people.
Hmm. That's
Uh,
true. That's true.
so it's like when you're denying your work to others, it's you're efficient, you're effectively stopping your growth, and you're potentially denying others the joy of, it's like, experiencing your work. It doesn't matter if some um, no one, it's like, who was that guy who said that no one will ever be universally loved. I forget. It's my headache. But um, you, of course, will have people who will hate your work for myriad of reasons. You will have people who will love your work, and you will have others who will like not enjoy your work. They will be in the middle. So it's like two against one,
Hmm.
basically. It's always two against one in these cases. So it's, and of course, the last reason, if you don't show your work to the world, um, you will never improve.
Hmm.
If you're just sitting and just self isolating yourself and yourself and your work,
Hmm.
it's
Because you're not getting that important feedback.
yeah.
You're
The,
not getting the
the most
information
important
that's
feedback is
dangerous.
the
Yeah,
reader's
what's it?
feedback.
Hmm.
It's how the
Hmm.
readers feel and what they think. Uh, you probably my opinion of quote unquote professional critics back in the day. They were great. They were amazing. They were like they gave you constructive criticism. They told you everything that you needed to know how to improve yourself, etc. Now they're just some obnoxious bullies. They're like, yeah, you suck, yeah, and that's it.
Well, some of them are actually paid to
Oh yes,
actually
oh
give you
yes,
bad reviews.
yes, 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 yes.
It's been in a couple articles where people have when a new not a new author but an author that is has some kind of history or well known, not like Stephen King, but I heard of one particular author, as soon as she came up with a book, she would actually pay people not only to give her good reviews, but also to give bad reviews to her competition.
Yes, yes.
Oh, wow.
This person is is not only fake, it's pathetic. This is
I mean, it's pretty sad when you have to pay
oh
for
yeah,
reviews.
sad. Yeah, indeed, indeed. It's like you or uh, if you're writing your own reviews and then you're publishing them, like if it's somebody else.
Mhm. One
Oh
thing I want to go back and touch on, it almost seems like you are obsessed with the stories. Like it's something that you just have to write down. Am I right about that? Because it
yes.
Yes,
seems like
yes.
sometimes it just comes out in a gush. Can you talk a little bit about that? The never ending need to put it down on paper?
Okay. Well, for me, I think because when I was writing Nightmarish Reality, I kind of didn't have much of a choice because these since I couldn't sleep and I was being haunted by these nightmares, I was like, let me just see if I can write them down and just see if I can just put them in a journal or put them in a book so I can go back and read them later. But I think for me, I had to because it was a way of expressing myself, a way of dealing with because I when I was in high school, I had a lot of anger for some reason. I didn't know why, and it was just kind of building up. You know how they say it's not good to keep your emotions bottled up all the time. So I felt that if I didn't write this novel, I mean, I might end up doing something I regret. So that kind of helped in a positive way because I'm writing down my thoughts, I'm writing down how I'm feeling, and then it just got longer and longer, and then 2 pages became 800, and then 800 became 1,000. So it just kept going, and I'm like, okay, maybe I have something here. Maybe this story should be told because like what he was saying before, how people need someone to connect and they just keep themselves isolated. In a sense, that's kind of what my main character does. He doesn't trust anybody. He's isolated and he needs to pretty much be open to not only meet new people but to meet good people as well. And he in the first novel he actually meets someone who he can actually have like a conversation with, someone who understands him in a sense. So that was a way for me to just handle the stress and the pressures that I was going through. So in a sense, um, that was I had no choice. I had to do it. So that was my reason.
That's that's good. That it's very good that you did it. Um,
Mhm.
in my case, it started with different and very elaborate what if scenarios back in school in history class. Um, we had I think I think she managed to escape uh, to West Germany, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, but this teacher, it suffice to say, she wasn't part of the establishment um, back in the day. So she gave us like personal um, projects, and those were a great way for her to see how every pupil in a classroom taught. And my favorite were the what if scenarios, and she would give us like a one of our history's most interesting events, and she would present a question, and we would write a short essay. And I think for me it started from there, and I my mind worked on overdrive, and one scenario became 15, and then 100, etc., etc. So later, I began like working on different stories, just mostly for fun, because my life was not fun. It was kind of depressing, actually, and so um, creating the stories was a way for me to, and of course, training and working and doing other stuff, preparing, learning, reading books, but it was part of the process. Um, and I think that if I hadn't done that, I probably, I don't know, I would be a much sadder and different person. Yeah.
Yes, you've definitely changed a lot of people's lives with your books, Aragmar, because this summer when I was going through a lot of mourning and I would read a page. I remember one page especially when um, Lily was found, and I thought she was dead, and I found out she wasn't dead. And oh, that was when I ran in the room right afterward and had to write down what happened, because everything just fell into place with that one paragraph. It was just so amazing. And I want to tell you guys, you don't realize, or maybe you do, how much it helps other people to read things that you write. And if I ever do have a writing bug, it's after I read something someone else wrote. So my inspiration is usually other people, and I write little blurbs, but it's still something that I know the feeling, because I'll be outside enjoying that particular moment, and then I've got to get inside. I've got to write it down before I forget. So I have a little inkling of what it must feel like. And I have to say, you guys, I have to give you credit. I don't know about you, Aragmar, but I know you, WDLady, you have to work a full-time job and still find time to write.
It's so hard.
I can only imagine. And I think it's really awful the way how hard it is for writers to get into. You have to almost be in the click for your books to take off. So I know everybody knocks Amazon, and I had to defend Aragmar one day. Somebody said, "Oh, look at you telling someone, oh, go get something off Amazon." And I just went back and said, "That's darn right. We use Amazon while we can, and just
until they ban the book."
Yeah, I basically told them to take a hike.
And
because you guys are really putting a lot into all that. And then to have a place where you can get your work published, and it's not, I know I've been talking to other people that are in the process of getting their books done, and they get ripped off. They find something they think is a great idea, and then oh, well, we told you this amount, now it's going to be this. So I'm not going to argue. If you put it on, so what? If it is on Amazon, at least you've got the exposure. Who cares? You're out there. So I have to commend you both. And WDLady, you and Aragmar are to get together, man. Does that guy know how to make a fan club? And doing reviews, that's another thing. He keeps reminding me, when you get done reading this, do a review, because the more people that say, hey, I like the book, or this is that helps to get it around more.
Especially for indie authors, yeah. Especially
yes.
for guys like us.
That's one thing that's really hard, is just getting people to actually read and then leave a review on either Amazon or Goodreads. But like people are so busy working, they have kids, they have all the responsibilities, so it's like it's so hard to just get just one review sometimes.
Yes, but you forget that we have our beloved uh, haters, and
Oh, yeah.
they have all the time in the world, and they will write anything. Of course, um, you know what they're going to write, but it's not like it, it's it is sad. I mean, these people, they must live a very sad life. Things that I've read them write, it's sad actually.
Aren't you the one WD lady that does the haters are gonna hate?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
I've
No,
seen that on
because
your.
no matter what you do, you can't please everyone, and
yep.
I've gotten to a point where I'm just I don't really care. I don't care what you think. When I was a child, yeah, I was like always thinking about what people thought of me. I don't know. I think I was just insecure. That's probably what it was. But now that I've mature and I mean, I'm
Do you
sure there's
know?
some. Oh yeah, I mean there's going to be haters, there's going to be trolls no matter where you go in life. Even in, just like in the workplace, you have people who hate you for no particular reason whatsoever. But yeah, you just have to just move on and yeah, I get into these brawls with these trolls sometimes on mines and I'm just like, "I don't care what you have to say. Block," you know? I
Remember,
just ignore and block them.
remember back in the day, my stalker. I had one stalker. Remember what?
Mhm.
She was pretty nasty, and I think that was the first time when I actually got a bit angry over something what someone wrote on the internet, because she was calling for genocide, basically, for
Mm.
half the human race. I think you remember her. Let's not dwell on it, but yeah.
No, you're
So
always
yeah,
gonna have
yeah.
people like that.
Like she said, um, when you know who you are, you know what you can and what you can't. It's like these people, they can't really do anything. Helpless, screaming and angry screeching. That's it.
It's good that we have a community, isn't it? Because when you get hit like that, there's going to be somebody else come along and they're going to say, "Oh, don't pay any attention to them. We got you back."
Mhm. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And I've
Yeah.
met several, well, only on Minds, not in real life, but some people have called me, like, a Karen, and I'm like, "Where did that come from?" Because I haven't displayed anything that or any signs that I'm a Karen or any kind of but yeah, I remember one guy, he would just leave these long messages and he was just calling me all these horrible names and slurs, and I'm just like, "Dude, what is your problem?" Like, I don't even you don't even know me. You
Sad
don't
life.
you
That's the problem.
you don't know me and you're already judging me. It's like me coming across the street and judging you and saying all these nasty things to you, and you don't know nothing about this person. You're gonna find people like that all the time.
100%.
It's interesting to
Yeah.
me that both you authors have focused in on this tendency that people have to bully others, to use their power of whatever it is. WD, why did you decide to look at bullying? Where were you coming from with that?
And it really just started from like my beginnings in high school and how I was pretty much an outcast. People would just basically just judge me just by the way I looked, by the way I dressed, by the way I talked. So it came from that because I'm like, you don't really know me. If you got a chance to talk to me, maybe you would probably like me. But that's how it was. People would just look at me and be like, "Who are you?" They would call me names like, "Oh, you're a weirdo," and things like that. So that kind of stemmed that's why I wrote the novel, because it was somewhat, not biography. It's more like just how I was feeling, just like an outcast in a big school, because I had never, even though I have been to other schools, I usually would make, when I was younger, I would make a lot of friends initially, but when I went into high school, things changed, and people were just nasty. In high school, people like walk all over you. So that, in a sense, that was why I had problems sleeping, because I'm like, why do people hate me so much? Because I haven't done anything to them. So that is why I wrote Nightmarish Reality, to emphasize that reality sometimes can be a nightmare for some people, because they they are outcast of society, and there's no one they can turn to. So they feel loneliness, they feel um depressed. So it was just kind of those emotions that I focused on in the first novel.
How about you, Aragmar? I think that your Tazarans are the epitome of bullies.
Not only them, but yes, you're correct. Um, well, they're a bit more than just that, but generally this is what they do. That's their modus operandi. If they can't bully you, they will find a way to um, weaken you so they can bully you. And they're very creative, and they use lots and lots of tried and tested uh, means. But the problem is that when they bumped into the Terrans, none of it worked, because the Terrans, they had already faced their own bullies and they have defeated them. And not only that, but they're teaching others how to do that and how to improve themselves. And this is something that actually terrifies those Tazarans who could see, who can see that, because a lot of them, they're just the regular bully. They're not. Yeah, I'm the bestest ever. I can push everybody around like I don't care um, what the weak or the weirdos are doing, because I'm the top, the bestest ever. But those who can see, like Lord Omasa, for example, they're horrified, because they know that they're actually uh, they've done some really bad stuff to a lot of people,
Yes.
and the bullies are always fewer than the bully. When the bully dries up, then the bullies come to die, unless they change. And um, those who are smart enough, they realize that it's old ways, um, how they were pushing everybody around, they might not be viable forever. But we are crossing into spoiler.
Aragmar has been teleported to bed. We wish him peaceful dreams. We hope he wakes up refreshed and revived for another day at his desk. So up till now we've talked mostly about your work, WDLady. Let's turn the spotlight on you. Who are you?
I'm just an ordinary person.
Yeah.
I'm just me. I just like to write stories and just pretty much just like to share them with everybody, and hopefully some people will either connect with them or some people may not. But
Okay.
I
Yeah.
just want to just share my work basically,
Mm.
even though it may be kind of controversial, because I know some of my work can be a little controversial. I was raised in a strict religious background, so certain things we weren't allowed to talk about. But I understand, but I just had to write stories where we just kind of question things, kind of like my characters are just going through the experiences of life and they're not perfect. So I have a lot of good characters and I have a lot of bad characters. Each individual, I mean, people are different, so I like having that. I'm not gonna say diverse cast, but I just wanna have, different characters that people can either connect to or they have something relatable to them, but none of my characters are perfect, even the good ones. They all make mistakes, so we're all human, we're all part of this world, and I just wanted to talk about characters that people would, like, either enjoy or relate to.
Well, I have to say, the ones that I've read, I need to get both your books. I'm guilty as charged for not doing that yet, but
It's
I've read a
okay.
whole lot of chapters back in the day, so I will have to buy it. But I have to say, of all the people on Minds, you're the one I see you almost every day there, encouraging. I encourage right back, but it's nice to be able to see, put a face and a voice to someone that we haven't been able to talk to before. I always love it when we get someone here we've never seen them. Some of them reveal their face, some don't, but just to hear your voice, it's really nice to know that there's a real person out there. We're not just talking to ourselves. It's been wonderful. Just love you, girl.
Oh, thank you.
Love you too. You are awesome. And I want to second that. It's really interesting to talk to an author. You hear the author's voice through the words, but then hearing the author's voice, it's almost as if when you read, you then can hear it in the author's voice instead of in your own one. I think it adds another layer. And I think that's what's so powerful about Minds is this
Mhm.
interaction of creative people. It sort of is
Yes.
motivating, isn't it? Just to talk.
That's true, and you have artists, you have writers, you have people who have been in, production, film production, or people who have, started their own businesses, and there's just so much, variety on Minds, and I support independent creators because when we were first starting out and people like, I even bought books from other writers and I would support them. I don't have the time to read all the books, unfortunately, but yeah, support other creators. I try to donate if I can, try to buy their merchandise. I know times are tough, people are struggling, but I try to support those because it's hard being an independent artist, independent director, because we don't get any support whatsoever from like mainstream media. Some people are blacklisted. Um, and then that's how it is sometimes, especially when you have different opinions, that go against, mainstream.
Mhm. I notice other social media platform. I'm not trying to make mine sound better than it is, but I notice other platforms you can't seem to form a group of people without having a particular group. Like on Facebook, I hate Facebook. It's like it puts you in a corner, and even your own friends don't see half of what you write or what you
Mhm.
post. But on Minds, I told Bob Dub how I'm doing things now. I used to look at the news feed. I don't do that anymore. I go by who's interacting with me. And they keep changing it. Is it reminds? Is it votes up? Whatever. But I stick with that pattern. And that's how this community, I think, kind of came together, because some of us that have been there for a long time, we kind of had that loose, what would you call it,
Bond.
connection,
Yeah.
but we didn't start out all that close. Were you there back when we used to do this like we're doing now in comments? Do you remember how we used to go all sit on somebody's channel and chat way back in the day? Do you remember that?
Maybe a little bit. I've been working so much. There's so much things I couldn't
You
remember,
probably
but
didn't get into those, yeah.
yeah,
Before they had the
I was
meetups
too
and all
shy.
we had was the old messenger, that was how our groups started. We'd
Oh
get our,
yeah. Oh yeah,
it
the
was usually
messenger.
Lady Red or oh, there was a girl that used to be there. She's not there anymore, but we used to get a whole bunch of us and just park on somebody's page and just chat back and forth all night. So there was a
Mhm.
way we got together even then. But
Mhm.
then they had the what did they call that before we had this? The meetups, the
Gathering.
where you could go into it. What
Gatherings.
was that called?
Gatherings.
What was it? Gathering? Yeah. I would. You want to talk about how much I've changed? When those gatherings started, I was like, not me. I'm not letting anybody hear my voice. No way. Chris Duguid, he sent me a microphone and I still found excuses. It wasn't long enough. It really did need an extension, but I didn't ask my son. I'm like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah, it can be very
And now you
intimidating.
couldn't kick me off.
Yeah. I found that I wrote a book of poetry once, and it was a powerful, powerful experience because it was a lot of negative stuff I was dealing with. And it took me a long time to put this book together. I did it in oils, and I made the book out of canvas pages. So I painted each page, and then you can't with the book where you've got all those pages that join together. I couldn't paint one page. I'd have to paint this side of that page and that side of that page. And then I wrote my poetry on top of the paintings. And once I'd finished that huge, intense project, and I closed the book for the first time like that, closed to put it away, and I suddenly felt this absolute lightness, as if I'd taken all those confusion things and put them there inside that book,
Mhm.
closed the cover, and then they stayed in the book.
Yeah, that's the same thing for me when I published Nightmares Reality. It's the same feeling, just a sense of relief that finally it's done and over with. That's why I'm trying so hard to finish this trilogy, because that mindset I had when I was younger, when I was 16 or 17, it's hard to go back and relive that again. Is almost like I'm so mature now. I'm just like I can't. I think that's why I had difficulty just doing the trilogy, because my mindset, I've grown. I'm a different person. I don't so it's just but yeah, I felt a sense of relief, because after I started writing about my thoughts and feelings and the nightmares, they went away. So I was sleeping better, even though, yes, I do work so much that I don't get no sleep, but it's not like I was having these horrible thoughts. I actually enjoy my work. I actually enjoy life. So it's just strange just when I go back and read my work and I'm like, this is not the same person. I'm completely different person. But in that time, that's how I was feeling.
Do you remember
You
what
know what I
Judith
was just
said,
thinking?
Teresa?
Hmm?
I was just going to say, maybe you should write from your point of view now. Don't stop. Like, pick up the character as more mature, just as an idea, because you know what you've been through. And I know it was hard for me. When I was in high school, I was I was weird. I was definitely not like everybody else. And in junior high and grade school, I kind of fit in. But like you said, high school,
Mhm.
that was a
Yeah.
lot harder. And
Yeah,
I
that's
was kind
true.
of a brainchild and I was going to graduate early. So I put myself into a really rough situation because I was with kids a year older than me. And I was always wondering why I didn't fit in. High school was rough. I would not want to go back to high school for anything.
Me
But
neither.
knowing how much change has happened, and I don't write like you guys do, but I do know when you have something on your chest and you pick up a pen and you put it, even if you're just writing in a chat, you notice how much difference it makes, how much better you feel.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
I'm just giving you a hint. Maybe keep going, because I know your books that you wrote about the high school years, they are enthralling. I just kept reading. You were shocked how many paragraphs and how many chapters. I remember that. I was like, give me more, give me more.
Because some people, I mean, it's a kind of love and hate relationship with this series, because some scenes I really, really love, and then other scenes I'm like, "Oh god, I hate them." And even with certain characters, like, especially certain, like the bullies or the villains, I'm like, "Oh man, I really hate these characters," but it just goes to show that these characters are there because they show you the good and the evil. Like, there's a good versus evil in the whole series, and they're always fighting. They're always, but hopefully in the end, hopefully it will work out, but it's just like in today, there's just a lot of evil in this world, and some people are like, "Why don't you just write like a happy, positive book or a children's book?" And I'm like, "No, because that doesn't exist. There's no utopia. This is the real world." So that's why I wanted to focus on those issues, because if you ignore them and say, "Oh, everything's all unicorns and rainbows," people are gonna just be ignorant of the truth.
Mhm. And I see that happening right now with all the censorship that we're stuck with almost everywhere. This is one of the best platforms for not doing that. And there's some limitations here, but still, we are free to voice how we feel. And it gives you a sense of empowerment. You're not the only one. When I go read on Quora and I see all the lefty crazy lunatics out there, and then I come back to my home away from home, mines, and people are a little bit, it's like, wow, the lights are on here, because, man, there's so much disinformation and people are just falling into the cracks. But I'm glad you mentioned good versus evil, because
Mhm.
it's really obvious now, isn't it? How the evil and the fight is on. The battle is
Mhm.
already on. And if
Mhm.
we didn't have this way to stay in touch with each other, we mentioned it on our last chat. I have been, as much as I can, getting people's at least an email address, because there's going to be days when you, like what happened just earlier. Mine's whatever happened, it went down. And that may happen again. And if you're feeling lost and alone, it's so nice to have a phone number to pick up,
Mhm.
because you can't always depend on online. And
That's true.
nobody
Mhm.
ever writes letters anymore.
I know. When I was growing up, me and my close friend, we would always write letters. Even though we wouldn't send them in the mail, we would write letters every day in either in class or whatnot, and then exchange them in the hallways. And I've kept those letters. I've kept them for over a decade.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Have you ever thought of publishing them, using them as a basis for another book?
I don't know, maybe. We'll see. Cause I mean, we wouldn't write anything, like, deep, or it would just be like, "Hey, how you doing?" So
You see, I think that's what high school girls really want. They want somebody, and maybe even you could have a book with blank pages so they could write a letter back. Ha ha ha. Don't know where that thought
yeah.
came from. Maybe I should do it. Oh,
And
well.
it's funny, here we are older, we're not in high school anymore, but that connection to get up every morning, like today, I got up and saw you guys were chatting in the chat already. I'm like, oh, good morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had just woken up and I'm like, oh, my guys are already out here. We're already, it's just such a relief to know that you belong to someone else, that you're not here all by yourself. And
Mhm.
I think people get that idea sometimes. There's bots everywhere, and you wonder, am I talking to a real person?
Yeah.
But we know better now. That's part of what we wanted to do to, hey guys, there's a bunch of us here. Let's meet each other. I would love to be able to meet in person. We talked about that before too. I know everybody can't, but wouldn't that be so much fun
Oh
if
yeah,
we're,
oh yeah. We could go places to cafe. We could go to the mall. You know, hopefully. But I know certain states you can't go to certain places anymore because it's like now you need a vaccination passport, and I'm like, this is ridiculous.
Mhm. I would really love, that's something I hope to do if we have enough life left on us without things getting really bad. But I would really love to do, they used to call it meetups, but I'd like to do them more informally. I know Chris Dugood and Lady Bread and Chris Madzier all got together. Me and Chris got together. I think it would be so, once we figure out where everybody is, to see if we couldn't do that. You know, like when you want to take a little short vacation, well, hey, there's
Hmm
3 guys in South Carolina, maybe I'll go down there.
Oh, that would be
Because
cool.
it's nice to carry it into the physical world. I know we can't do it with everybody. Like Bob Dub, you're so far away.
So far, I
hmm
know. But if Elon Musk makes those jet planes that Aragmar was talking about, I've heard that they go up like this vertically, and then they're supersonic or speed of light, sort of rocket ship, and then down. Wouldn't that be
Like
cool?
the difference between a bullet train and a regular train.
Imagine if it was like
hmm
2 hours between New Zealand and America, and you could just jump in your little hovercraft and anyway,
hmm
crazy dreams.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if he's able to perfect it, maybe he can make a faster plane and traveling would be cut in half. That would be a
Mhm.
really good idea. Cut traveling time instead of 8 hours or 6 hours on a flight, cut that into three.
Oh, that would be
Yeah,
cool.
I know everybody looks right now at what's going on out there, and everybody tends to think darkly about things. You know, oh, things are so rough. And I know times are hard, and they're probably going to get harder, but I try to find the silver lining. You know, we do have a rough thing happening out here in this real world. People are wondering if they're going to lose their jobs, and oh, what a really crazy world it is. But when we
Hmm
get in here in our little groups and we have someone else to talk to, what a difference it makes. And not everyone has the same thing, but Bob Dub and I'm pretty sure you said you grew up in a religious background, and I did too. And I rebelled against that because it was, my son even mentioned it because I was a Sunday school teacher for many, many years. And I drag him wherever we went because we were in the Navy and we move all over the place. And he came home one day and he said, Mom, that place is just so fake. And I thought to myself, we all have this, or most of us have a connection with something bigger than ourselves, but the words get in the way. They always get in the way. And I'm trying to change that where, okay, let's not talk about what's different. How about what's the same? We all hurt. We all get lonely. We all have days that we just, and there is something bigger than us. And just knowing that we're part of something bigger, that's what I'm hoping that Bob Dub and I can do for the ones that do have some real, I don't want to use the word religious,
hmm
spiritual inclination,
hmm
that you can come and talk with us and we're not going to scare you away. We're not going to beat you over the head with a Bible. We're not going to talk churchese. But what we're literally doing, for lack of a better word, we're having church. We are doing what we're supposed to be, where 2 or 3 are gathered. What does that do? It makes you feel like part of a community. I just, whatever words you want to put to it, having this group togetherness is going to pull us through some of the darkest times and some of the best times. So
hmm hmm
I'm just glad you did bring that up because I know it was that way with me. I grew up Southern Baptist. You want to talk about people that are hard to please. Rules as long as your arms, you know?
hmm hmm
And I don't think that's what was intended. I think when Jesus came here, he was trying to free us from all that.
Yes. Yes.
And all we've turned around and done was turn it into another religion for the most part. And I want to get it back to the way it was. I want to be, like Chris Dugan said, we should write a new Bible. And I don't know if that's the way to put it, but we do need to bring it to today. We need to make it real. And I don't like using all those words that you're used to hearing because that's what scares people off. I'm just me, and you're just you, and Bob Dub is just Bob Dub. But the three of us together, the Bible has a verse, a cord of 3 strands isn't easily broken. So I could go and preach like that, or I could come on here and say, isn't it fun to get together?
It is such fun to get together.
I was just a quiet person, especially in my teenage years. I would put on headphones, listen to music, and that would be pretty much my life. Or I would be studying in my room just quietly, listening to either the radio or, maybe sometimes I'll read a book. But yeah, I wasn't used to talking out about my feelings or anything like that. So it was very odd how, like, when I was growing up, that's how I was. I was just very I was polite. I was polite to everyone, but I just never really connected to people. I never really, talked to people who I didn't know. I wasn't it's kind of opposite now because since I'm more in hospitality, we have to say hi to everybody. So now it's like, "Hi, how you doing?" So I say that to literally everybody now, but when I was a child, I wouldn't say nothing.
Yeah.
I would class myself as an introvert, but I don't think that's accurate. I do like to be alone. This is my den here. I spend most of my time right here, all by myself. Now, I do have my son downstairs and my grandson right across the hall, but this is like my solace place. When that door is shut, they know, leave me alone. I still need that. But it was minds that changed me too, because my grandmother used to make me. I hated it, but I'm glad she did. She made me go up in the church because Grandpa was a deacon and she was the accountant. So I was pushed up there like, yeah, you're going to do. So I'd have to read a poem or memorize a poem or sing a song or play my saxophone. I just, why does she make me do this? And for years, I was like, I'm never going to do this again. Nobody's ever going to, no. And then I get on Minds and Chris. Now, mine was Chris Dugan. I did have Willie. Willie did push me a lot, too. When I first came on Minds, he was constantly telling me, Tom and T, they're great. They're great.
Yes.
So he had a role. But Chris was the one that pulled me out of it. He would not stop. Right. Did you get your microphone yet? Yeah. Why aren't you using it? Because I don't want to. Oh, come on.
I just want to say, WD, you said earlier that you had hard time in school because of how you looked. I have to say, I think you look gorgeous and you have one of the prettiest smiles I have ever seen.
Thank you.
Thank you so beautiful with your smile.
Thank
Even
you.
in her, when she was in the mass for Halloween, I could see her eyes, and I thought, oh, look at those beautiful eyes. I was like, so that's her.
I had the glasses because I can't see without them. So I had that's why it was kind of reflective in the mask because I was wearing my glasses underneath. So it was pretty uncomfortable.
I was thinking,
I don't know how I managed to do it.
Gosh, yeah, you were amazing to keep that mask on so long because it was just so beautiful sitting here seeing your mask.
Yeah, those masks.
I finally got the red one. I got the red one.
Oh, you got the red one?
But I had to air it out because the paint smell is so strong. So and kind of affects my sinuses. So I have to be careful because it was wearing that mask was suffocating. I don't know how I pulled it off.
I know you kept I couldn't keep mine tied, so I just took mine off. But my son noticed, he said, when you have that mask on, your eyes are wow. I'm like, what?
Eyes are glorious.
I didn't even realize that it looked like that until I looked at the picture afterward. And Justin and I were talking about it. There's something about eyes that tell you the person's soul, you know?
Yeah.
And I was watching a video yesterday. It was about people from other countries, and they were talking about things that they didn't know much about, like America's, the way it is here compared to there. And there was a whole bunch of people in the video, but this one guy, he stood out because of his eyes. I was, look at that guy's eyes. So there's something to be said about actually looking each other in the eye. I know we're not going to show it later, but just to be able to look at you and see your eyes, you know, you're a person. There's something.
Not only that, but with the everyone wearing a mask nowadays, you don't get to see people's facial expressions. So you don't really see people smile, and that's what I miss the most is how, and back in the day, you facial clues. Now with kids in school, they're forced to wear these masks all day, 8 hours every day, and I just feel sorry for these kids who not gonna know how to communicate. They're gonna be isolated. They're gonna be so introverted that they're not gonna get any signs or facial clues, and they're gonna be just kind of like social outcasts because all of their elementary or middle school, they're forced to wear these masks, and it's just very sad because when I was growing up, I mean, that's one of the main reasons to communicate with people, to get to know people is by their facial expressions, by how they look and everything. And these masks are just covering these kids, and they're not going to learn any of these important things that I had to learn when I was growing up. So they're going to just be um, even more lonelier, more depressed. And that's why we're seeing a lot of suicide rates skyrocket since the lockdown.
And you know what bothers me? I read an article just a couple of days ago. What happens to babies? Babies that were born this year, if they're in daycare, these kids, they're never going to know facial expressions. They're not going to understand body language. And isn't it funny? Mask. You know, I remember being a kid, they used to say, take off your mask, be you, right?
Yes.
And look at the society now. Masks everywhere.
Not only that, but they're basically brainwashing these kids and saying, "Hey, if you don't take the vaccine, you're gonna have to wear this mask for the rest of your life." It's like teachers telling these kids, preschoolers, um, basically telling them, "Hey, if you do the vaccine, you get to take off your mask, you get to have these special privileges that nobody else gets." But I mean, it's like, why are you even a teacher? Why are you doing this? It's just really tragic because when my teachers, they were always very encouraging. They were always very professional. Now you have these teachers, and they're brainwashing kids into socialism and Marxism, and it's just they can't think for themselves. You're supposed to be teaching them math, English, science, biology. They don't even know who they are, and you're giving them 10 million genders, 92 different genders. Why are kids learning that? I feel that's very negative. That's very, especially for the development of this child, they should be learning the basics.
I agree. I had to take my grandson out of school because of that, because we were doing homeschooling, what the school was doing, the school online. And Lucas is very insecure about using a computer and has trouble with. So I was sitting over, my bed was in a different position where I could actually see the computer and be out of the way. And I was sitting there the first day. And Lucas looked over at me, and I guess the teacher caught his look. And she said, "Is your parent there?" And I came into the picture and said, "Yes, I am. Is that a problem?" She says, "Well, you don't really need to be here. Why don't you leave?" And I said, "Excuse me?" And she was sitting there in a room by herself wearing a mask. I said, I think we made it 3 more days. And she said some other she was talking this gender baloney and all these other things. And I said, I came back. I was sitting over there and I came on and I said, "We're done. We're shutting it down. We are done." I got on the phone. As soon as I got done with her. And I called the district superintendent, and I said, do you think this is a really good way to teach special ed kids? And I told her what happened. She says, I am so sorry, but this is what the district's been told to do, and it's what we're doing. And I said, well, who is your boss? I thought your boss was parents. She says, well, I'm sorry, but it's the state school board. So we've been homeschooling ever since. And that's why if you see my head turned, that's just coming, my math's done, Grandma.
These school boards have just way too much power. They just because initially it's the parents' decisions what they want to teach their children. It's their right. They want to take away the parents' rights and basically groom these kids into basically socialists. And it's just crazy nowadays because I'm like, this is the agenda that they're pushing on children. And it's sad because used to have a lot of friends in the LGBT community, and now they, especially with the election, especially with Trump and everything, I don't have any of those people supporting me. As soon as I voted for Trump, they just rejected me. So it's like these people just basically use these kids, but once you start thinking for yourself and saying, hey, questioning things and being like, hey, there's something wrong here. We need to, talk about this. They just kick you to the curb, and you're basically nobody to them. So I used to have a lot of friends in that community, and now I'm just kind of rejected from them. So it's sad to see, but that is basically what is going on, and people like me or people like us, we need to start talking about it because if not, these people are just gonna control these school boards. They're gonna just take over everything, which they pretty much have, entertainment, education, and they're just brainwashing everybody with this propaganda.
The one we were talking to before, Richard Good, we were talking with him about that, how everything seems to be to put you in a box, and he was saying, I'm done with that. And he mentioned Charles Bukowski on his tombstone. He said, don't try. And I think that's what people are, just trying to push everything on everybody. And that's not what we're here for. We're here to learn. Who am I? What am I here for? What can I do? And these kids aren't learning that. If I have a kid, if anyone has a child in school, I would tell you you can go to your kid's classroom and listen. And if you're doing the online, I challenge anybody to sit and listen. And when you hear what they're teaching your kids, you should be getting angry, because this is just not right. These kids can't think I was talking to my son this morning. When we were children, we learned critical thinking. We learned how to debate, how to talk without getting into a fight, even if you don't agree. These kids aren't learning that. They're being taught, this is it. This is how you do it. There's no other way. But then at the same time, they're telling them, oh, you're a boy. You don't have to be a boy. You're a girl. You don't have. How confusing is this for these kids today? I know we've gotten way off of what literature is, but now we're getting into real life. And it is something that really is, I like how you said, it's time to speak up. You don't have to go out and be a revolutionary and go shoot up the school or go hit your school teacher. You need to speak. And if we do speak, and I think this week we're doing, there's a nationwide walkout. These things are happening. The police, the firefighters,
Yeah, they're all walking out.
And the more of us that say, hey, we don't think like you, and there's a lot more of us.
Yes. Well,
it's the same thing for the airlines. Like 1,000 pilots just basically walked off the job. That's why 1,000 flights were canceled. I believe it was it Southwest, but I heard another airline. Yeah, another airline, Delta. Yep. But also there's some lawsuits. I saw it on the news. Some people are suing because they were forced into getting the vaccine, the jab, and they're suffering severe side effects from it. one lady, she's like, I didn't want to lose my job, so I took it, and she's suffering from all this extreme pain, and she's suing them because it's like, why are you forcing people? People have a right to their own bodies. People have the right to decide whether they want to take this or not. But when you're forcing them to say, "Hey, you better take this or you're out of a job, you're not going to be able to feed your kids." I mean, what do you expect? What do you expect is gonna happen? People are gonna push back. People are gonna fight back, and people are just gonna walk off and then you're not gonna have anybody on these airlines. You're not gonna have anybody on these jobs, but that's what they want.
That's the other thing. It feeds into their system, doesn't it? When you walk out, it slows everything down. But I don't ca- It's to the point we have got to do something. We've got to stand up. And you don't have to be violent about it. You can just go out and say, hey, I'm not going to go to work today because they're telling it is a personal choice. And I can't, there's never been another time like this that I can remember where there was such an agenda behind health. We were just being told, oh, HIPAA, HIPAA, HIPAA. Nobody can know this, nobody can know that. Now all of a sudden you got to have a passport.
Yep,
There's an
yep.
agenda, obviously an agenda. And if we speak up, they can't win.
This always happens just as we get into the nitty-gritty. We run out of
Yeah.
time. But it's been absolutely wonderful, wonderful, wonderful having you with us, WDLady, and I'm really
Thank
hoping we
you.
can get back together and continue this topic.
Yes, yes, I would love to. Thank you so much.
Great. Let's make a follow-up. So farewell to you, WDLady. Keep well and we'll see you soon. Really great to see a young woman like WDLady focusing. Well, it's as if she's used her own difficulties to inform her current writing, and it's definitely, well, it seems to me to be aimed at other children who've had those same issues. Is that what she was saying?
Her books, they are a little mature, but I would say someone in high school could probably read her books and go, oh yeah, that's me. I haven't finished any one of them, I'm sorry to say, but when she was doing her chapter reading contest, I must have read like 20 chapters in 3 days.
Really?
I got into the story so much.
Yes.
And then I need to buy the book. I will buy the book and finish it. But there's something so real about her characters because they do feel that
They do, don't they?
disconnect.
Yes. And the interesting thing is that Aragmar has that very same thing of this compelling story and these deep, deep, complex characters. And I have the thing when I get into his stories, I can't stop. I just need to know what's going to be the next fight.
Yeah. That's been my problem lately. I'm having to make myself find my own time because with homeschooling and with Lucas is starting to feel it. And I'm wondering how many other homeschool kids are. This isolation grows old. He could go outside and it wouldn't matter. The kids have changed. They come home from school with the mask still on. It's like they're being conditioned to accept it. And he's like, why do you have your mask on? They can't even connect anymore. It's changing the ones that are going. And so he's even more of an oddball. And it's really, I don't have an answer.
It's hard. It's really, really hard. I don't know what it is. I also think, what is it going to do to people older children, older sort of 18, 19, 20-year-olds, trying to pair up and to find a husband, a wife, a partner? I mean, how is that going to happen these days if you can't even go to the movies or go to a restaurant? It's worldwide. It's not just one group. It's a worldwide separation of humans, one from the other.
This is going to make a generation of emotionally crippled kids if we pull out of it ever. Like Lucas, he's 15. He should be starting to find girls and going to movies and dances and all of that. Everything that we've always done from time immemorial, boys and girls meeting up. How can, like you said, how can they? And even if this changes, these kids that have been in that system, they're going to be different in how is it? Oh, I just don't know. I just don't know what to think. But it isn't going to stop if we don't say something. And I
think that's lovely that WD and Aragmar are saying these things, because it's imperative to get the word out, in my opinion.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And we talked for just a little bit there on good versus evil. And those books that they were writing, that was fiction. I mean, we're in the real, it's bizarre. It's almost, her book was called Nightmarish Reality. Boy, isn't that a good way to put reality right now?
Isn't it? Isn't it? That's fascinating.
If I was younger, my son says this is why I'm sitting here in my chair. Because if I was younger, I'd be out there getting trouble protesting at the mayor's office or something.
Yes, well, it is. I'm actually really thinking about on the street protests, not great big demonstrations, but things like just getting out there with a cell phone and just approaching people and saying, where are you at? Because it's very hard. It's easy to get confirmation bias. We sit here, we talk to each other about our problems that we're having, and then we seem to tend to think that everybody in the world is having those problems. And maybe getting out into the streets and interacting, but we're not allowed to even, you know? People walk away from you if you walk to them because they've got to have social distance between you.
Oh, that's right. They're actually pushing us away from talking, but wouldn't that be neat if you could do that? Man on the street interviews. I really don't know how to approach anybody from that side anymore because it's almost not logical. It's like they've been programmed with certain answers. They don't even, it's not real. It's like this is what I heard, this is what I repeat.
Yes. And it's strange how nobody's talking about solutions. There's so much talk about who's right and who's wrong and which way we should go. And there's no sort of idea amongst people that a little bit of the conservative and a little bit of the progressive all mixed together would make a more well-balanced person and society. And the separation into ideology that doesn't matter what you say to me, I'm going to maintain my conservative beliefs, or I'm going to maintain my liberal thinking, whatever it is. And it's as if, I don't know, it's as if we've forgotten that we can solve problems.
Mm-hmm. It's almost like it's driving a wedge on purpose, like we were saying the other day. Divide and conquer.
There's an agenda.
Keep this little group over here busy. Keep that group over there busy. And don't ever let the twain meet.
Isn't it fantastic that we have the internet? We don't need to be together. We don't need a mask. We have a computer screen and we can be closer than we can be out in real life. What have they done?
I don't think they realize
they don't think
this is the way around them. Haha, you made it. We're using it.
Yes, well, I think that's a great thing. And what a brilliant chat today. Wasn't that just great?
Oh my gosh. It was really getting going there at the end. But I like that how we leave it kind of on a cliffhanger because now you got to come back. There's things we talk about because we're here and we know we're safe that we would never say any other way. Like in my chats, and I keep them separate as I don't tell stories on anybody, but there's something about having that connection, even if you are 1,000 miles apart.
Yes.
And I don't think they realize when they put this internet together, oh yeah, you can get people to waste time and you can get people to all think the same way. You can maybe divide a whole lot of us, but you forgot some people are using it to make connection.